Hey guys, this is Mrs. Freeman. I'm going to talk about solving two-step equations. So I'm calling this lesson 1.3b because it's not an official lesson in your textbook, but it is something that I want to go over before we start doing things that are a little bit more difficult. So we just learned how to solve one-step equations. Two-step equations are something that you've seen before. We're going to review those just a little bit. So make sure you've got your notes page labeled, lesson 1.3b, and this is solving two-step equations. Okay, there is a warm-up here. Go ahead and pause this video, and all four of these are one-step equations. So this is a review. Pause this video and solve all four of these, and then we'll come back and see how you did. Okay, on number one, it looks like I've got a one-step equation. I want to get my x by itself, but right now I've got a -9 that's in my way. So remember, -9 and x are side by side. That means they're being multiplied. So to get rid of that -9, I'm going to do the opposite of multiply, and I'm going to divide by -9. And that gives me my x by itself. So that means my answer is just -108 divided by -9, which will be +12 if you use your calculator. Okay, remember a negative divided by a negative, those negatives cancel, and you get a positive answer. Number two, to get your x by itself, you have a -3 that you've got to get rid of. So, of course, I want to do the opposite of that to each side of this equation, and I want to add 3. Here, those are going to cancel, which is what I wanted to happen. That gives me my x by itself, so that tells me I'm almost done. My last step is just to go ahead and add these together, -12 plus 3. If you do that in your calculator, you will get -9. Okay, next I've got x over 5 equals -8. Okay, so I want to get rid of this 5 on the bottom of my x. Anytime I've got something that looks like a fraction like this, that's another way of writing division. So my x is being divided by 5. So I want to do the opposite and multiply by 5, and that'll get rid of that guy. But I have to do it to this side also in order to keep my equation balanced. So when I do that, I've got -8 times 5, and that is -40. Okay, and then lastly, you had 12 and x are side by side. That means they're being multiplied. So to get rid of that 12, we're going to divide, opposite of multiply, on both sides. And you should have got 144 divided by 12, which is just 12. All right, so all four of those were one-step equations, and what that means is there was only one step that I had to do in order to solve them. So two-step equations, as you can probably figure out by the name, there's going to be two steps that I have to do in order to solve them. Okay, so here's my first one, -3x plus 5 equals 2. There's actually two ways to solve two-step equations, and I'm going to show you both of them, and you can pick whichever one you like the best. Okay, the first one is just kind of what we did with one-step equations, right? I want to get this x by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is isolate my variable term. So this right here is the term that contains my variable. I want to get it by itself. which means I want to get rid of that plus 5. And if I want to get rid of a plus 5, of course, I'm going to do the opposite of that, and I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit different than what we did previously. Yes, those go away. And I've got 2 subtract 5, which is negative 3. But notice I do not have x by itself over here on the left. I have negative 3x, and that's what I've got to write there. That doesn't go away until I make it go away. But now that I've done that, now I have a one-step equation. Negative 3x equals 3, because here was my first step. And now I'm about to do my second step in order to get x by itself. Right now, negative 3 and x are side by side. That means they're being multiplied. So to undo that, I'm going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. That's going to give me x by itself, which is what I wanted, so that tells me I'm almost to my answer. My answer is going to be negative 3 divided by negative 3, which is positive 1. Okay, so there's one way to do that. If you like that way, fantastic. Watch this other way. Exact same problem, just like this. Again, the idea that I want to follow is I want to get the variable term by itself. So I want to isolate the variable term, which is negative 3x. That's the term that contains my variable, which is x. Okay, that means I want to get rid of this plus 5. I want to get rid of it. Okay, one thing that I can do is I can move it over here to the other side of this equal sign over here with the 2. And then my 2 and my 5 would be on the same side, and since those are like terms, I can go ahead and combine those things. Okay, but there is one rule that you have to follow. It's totally legal in math to move things across the equal sign as long as you flip their sign when you move them. So what I mean by that is, I'm going to put this 2 over here where it goes. If I move this positive 5 to the other side of the equal sign, it's going to become negative 5 or minus 5. Okay, then my negative 3x, it stayed in the same spot, so it's going to stay negative 3x. But notice now how I have the same thing that I just did over here. I've got 2 minus 5, which is what I did over here whenever I solved this problem, 2 minus 5. Okay, but now since these are like terms, I don't have to take stuff away from both sides because those are like terms, so I can go ahead and combine them. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And then I just have a one-step equation just like I did right there. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3, and I'm going to get the same answer that I got. So those are literally the exact same thing. Whenever I was in 8th grade, I was taught this way right here to move things across the equal sign. Whenever we get to equations that are a lot harder and have a lot more steps, this way is definitely a lot easier. But it's not the only way to do it. I told you that there was lots of ways to do everything in math, and I'm going to show you lots of ways to do everything. You get to ultimately pick your favorite, and I'm not going to tell you which way you have to do it. But I do want you to be familiar with this way, this one, because it's going to make your life a lot easier whenever these equations get more difficult. Okay, all we got to remember is if I move something across the equal sign, it changes from a positive to a negative, or vice versa, a negative to a positive. Okay, the last part of this question said to check your solution. The cool thing about equations is I have a way to determine if my answer is correct. Okay, there's not a whole lot else in math that I can do that with, but I can do that with equations. I can literally check and see if my answer is correct. Because what I'm trying to find whenever I'm solving this equation is I'm trying to find a value for x that if I plug it in here, I'm going to get 2 when I solve this equation, because that's what is on the other side of the equal sign. So all I have to do to check my solution is plug in my answer and see if it works. Okay, so if I plug in 1 for x here, remember side by side means multiplied, so don't forget to multiply those. If you just put them next to each other, that's going to look like negative 31, and that's not what this is. Okay, now I just got to multiply negative 3 times 1, that's negative 3. Rewrite everything else exactly like it looks. Negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2. So I did end with a true statement, which means my answer is correct. Okay, let's look at another. This one's got fractions in it. Oh, snap. That's okay. Let me rewrite it exactly like it looks right here. I'm going to do it both ways again. Our first way, which in both of them, I want to isolate the variable. I want to get the variable term by itself. So I want to get rid of this minus 1/2. So I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to add 1/2. Okay, when you do that, your negative 1/2 and your positive 1/2 cancel out. Negative 7 over 2 plus 1 over 2, that's negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3. And then what I'm left with on the left side is x over 8. So I'm almost finished. Here was my first step. This is a 2-step equation though, so I've got to do another step. I want to get x by itself, so I have to get rid of this 8. So I've got to ask myself, what is this 8 doing to my x? Well, my x is being divided by 8. So to undo that, I'm going to multiply by 8 on both sides. That makes those go away. I do get x alone, which is what I wanted. And negative 3 times 8, that is negative 24. Okay, let's try that the other way. Just rewriting the question. Whoops, that's not what I want. Again, my first step is to isolate the variable. So I want to get my variable term by itself, which means that I want this negative 1/2. I want to combine it with the negative 7/2 somehow, but I can't do that right now because they're on opposite sides of the equal sign. So in order to combine them, I'm going to boot this guy over here to the other side, which is completely legal, but I had a rule that if I did that, I had to change it from a negative to a positive, or a positive to a negative like we did last time. Okay, so that's the only rule I had to follow, is if I'm going to take something like this and boot it across the equal sign, I just got to flip its sign, and then it's totally fine. And notice this negative 7/2 plus 1/2, that's what we did right here. So it's the same thing, same thing. Okay, so let's go ahead, and now I can combine these because they're like terms. They're both constants. They both do not have a variable. And again, negative 7/2 plus 1/2 is negative 3. So notice I'm literally left with the exact same thing that I was left with right here. To get my x by itself, I'm going to get rid of this divided by 8. So I'm going to multiply by 8 on both sides, which is going to give me negative 24. Okay, to check our solution, That means that if I plug in negative 24 for x, I should get negative 7 halves. Let's try it. Negative 24 over 8 minus 1 half equals negative 7 halves. And all you would have to do here is just type this into your calculator. And if you do that, you will get negative 3.5 or negative 7 halves. So this is a true statement. So our answer is correct. Okay, cool. I don't want to confuse you by showing you two different ways of doing something. You don't have to do both of them. You literally get to pick. Like I said, just do whichever way is easiest for you. I'm not making you do both of them on every problem. Pick the way that's easiest for you. Example 3, solve 3y minus 8y equals 25. Well, this one's a little bit different because I've got more than one variable, and I haven't had that before. So I have more than one y in this equation. Well, what I see right off the bat is these are like terms, right? They both have a y. Neither one has an exponent. They're both just to the first power. So they are like terms. They are on the same side of the equal sign, so that means I can combine them, right? I can just do 3y minus 8y, which is going to be negative 5y. And that gets rid of those. And then I've just got equals 25 left. So now I just have a one-step equation. How do I know it's one step? Because there's only one thing on the same side as my variable that I have to get rid of. Okay, so now to get this y alone, negative 5 and y are side by side. That means they're being multiplied. So to get rid of it, I'm going to do the opposite and divide on both sides. That gives me y by itself, which tells me I'm almost at my answer. I just need to know what 25 divided by negative 5 is. And if you do that in your calculator, that is negative 5. I didn't have to check my answer this time, but you sure could, and it would tell you if your answer is correct. Okay, we have one more. Looks like this one's decimals this time. Anytime it's fractions or decimals, you guys like to freak out and be like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Please understand that it's the exact same thing. And you get a calculator, so you don't need to freak out about fractions and decimals anymore. Okay? What I see is, again, two like terms on the same side of the equal sign. So before I can even solve this guy, I want to combine those like terms. Okay, I want to make this easier for myself, and I want to combine those into one thing. And 0.3 minus 2.8 is negative 2.5. And of course, don't forget your variable. Now again, I just have a one-step equation, because there's only one thing with my variable that I have to get rid of. I want to get m by itself. Negative 2.5 and m are side by side. That means they're being multiplied. So to get rid of that, I want to do the opposite, and I want to divide by negative 2.5 on both sides. That gives me m by itself. And then I just need to divide 12.5 divided by negative 2.5, which if you do that in a calculator, that's just negative 5. Okay, so easy peasy lemon squeezy. It wasn't really complicated just because there was decimals. We have a calculator that does decimals for us, so don't freak out and say you can't do it when you see fractions or decimals. All right, your assignment is on big ideas. So go ahead and try that out and let us know if you have any questions. Have a great day.